Oh, can we talk about Malach Yehovah, angel of the Lord, in Christian theology? So there's an idea that goes back to the 2nd century at least. Justin Martyr wrote a book called Dialogues with Trypho, and there he talks about the angel of the Lord. He refers to as he describes as what's known as the pre-incarnate Christ. In other words, in the Old Testament, when it says angel of the Lord, according to many Christians, that angel of the Lord isn't just some anonymous angel, as we would get the impression as Jews reading the Tanakh, but actually that is Jesus making a cameo appearance in the Old Testament. That's a very common idea. I think it's obvious that in Shem Tov's Hebrew Matthew, we've now had angel of the Lord twice. That could not be the pre-incarnate Christ, because Yeshua is already on earth, to state the obvious. So, and then we'll say not every instance of angel of the Lord is the pre-incarnate Christ, but they selectively identify instances of this angel, which I find fascinating as a Jew, to say that Yeshua is an angel, because angel means a messenger. Boy, that's the kind of theology worms we don't want to get into, maybe. Okay. Let's go on in verse 13. What else you got there, Keith?
Well, in 13, actually, something stopped for me. So I'll tell you what I'm doing, Nehemia. And I mean, what's beautiful about this is we have different approaches. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm taking my 2 English translations and I'm reading them, and then I'm looking at Howard. I'm looking at the tool that we have. I'm looking at Delitzsch. And for example, when I look at that verse in 13, there is something that jumps off the page for me. I'm also looking at the Greek, just like you were just discussing. And it says this in all of the versions, including Delitzsch. It says, and the angel of Yehovah, the angel of the Lord, appeared, and then it gives in all of those versions, except for in Shem Tov, in a dream. In Shem Tov, it doesn't say in a dream. It just says appeared. Now, at this point, when I'm reading in Shem Tov, all of a sudden Joseph gets another stripe on his shoulder in terms of importance. And I'll tell you why.
How so?
When I find in the Tanakh examples of where the angel of Yehovah appears, not in a dream, not to say that that's not important, but when it's not in a dream, but appears to them, it seems to be that there's something that will kind of make me slow down. So again, in this situation in Shem Tov, it says the angel of Yehovah appeared. Now, we're supposed to slow down. In Shem Tov, at least this is what I did. I slowed down and I said, wait, I don't see that in Delitzsch. I see in a dream. In my English versions, I see in a dream. In most of the translations, it says in a dream. And then there's another phrase later that says that when it's time for to leave, he leaves at night. So it's supposed to connect with the idea. He had a dream. He woke up at night. He left. But when I see the angel of Yehovah appeared in Hebrew, I'm thinking again more about Joseph. And it's going to connect 2 verses later, but I don't want to jump there. Just when I saw that, it made me have a level of respect for Joseph. He kind of gets a bad rap, you know. It's not really Joseph in the first chapter. It's the father. But now Joseph gets a visitation. Like, I mean, the angel, I'm talking about what Hebrew Matthew says, the angel of Yehovah appeared to him. Like how many examples do we see that in the Tanakh where the angel, and I was going through this in the Tanakh, I was going through and I was going to say, have you go on the tap and look at it. But I'd like people to do that, to go through and find how many times you see the angel of Yehovah, not in a dream, not in a vision, but appearing to the person, according to Hebrew Matthew. That's what happened. And again, that made me think, wow, Joseph is really something, man. It kind of changed my view of him just from Hebrew Matthew.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I just did a quick search here, as you suggested, angel of Yehovah, and looked for the word chalom, dream. And I didn't find any verses that came up. Now maybe it's in an adjacent verse.
Yeah.
So let's be careful. We didn't do a systematic study of all 58 places right now. But generally, the angel of Yehovah does not appear in a dream. He appears when a person is
except for if you're Joseph in the first chapter. What happens is he has the dream. The angel of Yehovah appears in a dream. The angel of Yehovah tells him in a dream. But in this one little phrase, it's not. Joseph all of a sudden had a change. It's not in a dream now.
It's interesting. So we have the story in Genesis. You're making me think about what we talked about in Torah Pearls years ago. And there, Avimelech, who is the Gentile king, he's the Philistine king. Genesis 20, where God appears to the Philistine king. The Philistine king Avimelech. He takes Abram's wife. And then in verse 3 of chapter 20, it says, and Elohim came to him, to Avimelech, in a dream at night.
Yes.
And he said to him, behold, you're dead because of the woman which you have taken.
Mm-hmm.
She is married.
Mm-hmm.
And then Avimelech understands he's got to give her back. He's told in this dream. And he has a conversation with God in the dream. So, but she told me that that's her brother, not her husband.
Yeah.
So here, that's interesting. So Avimelech has Yehovah appear, but it's not an angel. And of course, maybe that was an angel, just didn't tell us how Yehovah appeared,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes Yehovah appears to somebody and we're told that later that's an angel, or early in the story that's an angel, but it's Yehovah speaking,
Mm-hmm.
because Yehovah speaks through the angel. At least that's the Jewish understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting, this whole dynamic of angels versus Yehovah himself.
I just thought it was,
yeah,
the reason I say that things changed for me is that I just started looking at Joseph a little bit different. Again, not to diminish the fact that he had this visitation through a dream, but hey, look, maybe he had bad pizza. It was a bad, it wasn't a dream, but just in case there's any confusion, the angel of Yehovah appears to him. That's what it says.
Interesting.
In the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew.